Welcome to Zero Fertility Future, the podcast where we explore the global demographic shifts shaping our world. I'm your host, Tak Lo, and today, in episode 5, we're heading to Armenia to examine a nation facing a unique set of challenges in the Zero Fertility Future. This episode is based on my article, Armenia and the Zero Fertility Future, Navigating Demographic Decline in the Shadow of Conflict, and we'll be exploring how conflict and demographic decline intersect to shape Armenia's present and future. As Armenia faces a shrinking population, its geopolitical and economic challenges are compounded by long-standing regional conflicts and instability. But like many nations grappling with these demographic shifts, Armenia can also find opportunities through innovative policies, technology, and international collaboration. Let's dive into the topic. I'll be reading my article, which unpacks the situation Armenia finds itself in, between the pressing realities of demographic decline and the very real challenges posed by ongoing conflict in the region. Armenia and the Zero Fertility Future, Navigating Demographic Decline in the Shadow of Conflict. As the global community increasingly confronts the reality of declining birth rates and aging populations, the concept of a Zero Fertility Future, ZFF, a scenario where fertility rates drop to levels that jeopardize the sustainability of populations, is becoming an urgent topic of discussion. While much attention has been given to the demographic crisis in Western Europe and East Asia, the situation in Central and Eastern Europe and the Caucasus is equally alarming. Among these countries, Armenia faces unique challenges that are deeply intertwined with its history, geopolitical situation, and ongoing conflicts. Armenia's demographic landscape. Armenia, like many other post-Soviet states, has experienced significant demographic shifts since the collapse of the Soviet Union. The country's population has been steadily declining due to a combination of low birth rates, high immigration, and the devastating impact of regional conflicts. Armenia's total fertility rate currently stands at around 1.6 children per woman, well below the replacement level of 2.1. This mirrors a broader trend in the CEE region, where fertility rates have plummeted over the past few decades due to economic instability, social change, and a legacy of Soviet-era policies. The demographic decline in Armenia is exacerbated by the ongoing conflict with Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh, which has not only claimed lives but also driven many young Armenians to leave the country in search of safety and better opportunities. The combination of war, economic hardship, and a shrinking population poses a serious threat to Armenia's future, potentially leading the country towards a zero fertility future if not addressed. Economic and social implications. The implications of a zero fertility future in Armenia are profound, touching on every aspect of society. Economically, a shrinking and aging population threatens to erode the labor force, reduce economic growth, and place immense pressure on social welfare systems. With fewer young people entering the workforce and more retirees depending on state support, Armenia could face a demographic time bomb that undermines its long-term stability and prosperity. Socially, the decline in birth rates is also a reflection of changing attitudes towards family and childbearing in Armenia. Economic uncertainty, high levels of immigration, and the ongoing conflict have all contributed to a growing sense of insecurity, leading many Armenians to delay or forego having children. This trend, if left unchecked, could lead to a further weakening of the traditional family structures that have historically been a cornerstone of Armenian society. The role of conflict and immigration. One of the most significant factors driving Armenia's demographic decline is the ongoing conflict with Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh. The wars in the early 1990s and more recently in 2020 have had a devastating impact on the country's population, particularly among the younger generation. Many young men have been killed or injured in the fighting, and countless others have left the country to avoid conscription or seek better opportunities abroad. Immigration has further compounded Armenia's demographic challenges. Since the 1990s, hundreds of thousands of Armenians have immigrated, particularly to Russia, Europe, and the United States, in search of better economic prospects. This exodus has resulted in a significant loss of human capital, with many of the country's most educated and skilled individuals leaving the country. The loss of this young, productive segment of the population is a major driver of Armenia's low fertility rates and demographic decline. Armenia's struggle in the broader CEE context. Armenia's demographic crisis is part of a broader trend across Central and Eastern Europe and the Caucasus, where many countries are grappling with similar issues of low fertility, high immigration, and the legacy of Soviet-era policies. However, Armenia's situation is particularly acute due to the ongoing conflict and the country's small population size. Unlike larger CEE countries that may have more resources or stronger economies to mitigate the effects of demographic decline, Armenia's options are more limited. The Armenian government has implemented various policies to try to reverse the demographic decline, including financial incentives for families, programs to encourage the return of the Armenian diaspora, and efforts to improve the country's economic situation. However, these measures have had limited success, and the country's demographic outlook remains bleak. The path forward: addressing the Zero Fertility Challenge. Addressing Armenia's demographic challenges will require a multifaceted approach that goes beyond simply encouraging higher birth rates. The government must continue to implement policies that support families, such as improving access to affordable housing, expanding childcare options, and creating a more supportive environment for working parents. These measures are essential for creating the stability and security that Armenian families need to feel confident in having more children. In addition to these domestic policies, Armenia must also find ways to address the ongoing conflict with Azerbaijan and the associated immigration crisis. While resolving the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is a complex and long-term challenge, reducing the tensions and fostering peace in the region is critical for creating a stable environment in which families can thrive. Similarly, efforts to encourage the return of the Armenian diaspora, such as providing economic incentives and creating opportunities for investment, could help to replenish the country's population and reverse the brain drain that has so severely impacted Armenia. Conclusion: Armenia at a crossroads. Armenia stands at a critical juncture in its history. The country's demographic decline, exacerbated by conflict and immigration, threatens to push it towards a zero-fertility future with profound consequences for its economic and social stability. Addressing this crisis will require bold leadership, innovative policies, and a commitment to fostering a peaceful and prosperous future for all Armenians. As part of the broader CEE and Caucasus region, Armenia's struggle with demographic decline is emblematic of the challenges faced by many countries in this part of the world. By learning from the experiences of its neighbors and adopting a proactive approach to its own unique challenges, Armenia can hope to avoid the bleak future that a zero-fertility scenario would entail and instead build a sustainable and thriving society for generations to come. That was my reading of Armenia and the Zero Fertility Future. Armenia, like many nations, must confront the long-term impact of shrinking populations, but this challenge is heightened by conflict and political instability. As we've explored today, addressing these issues require creative solutions, whether through policy reform, technological innovation, or international support. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Zero Fertility Future. I hope today's reading helped illuminate the critical intersections between conflict, demographics, and the future of nations like Armenia. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe and share it with others who are curious about the future of our global population. I'll be back soon with more insights on the Zero Fertility Future. Until then, stay informed and stay engaged.